That is just a small fraction of the over 200 demonstrators, counter demonstrators, protesters and counter protesters who decided to show up at a drag queen story hour that happened in Oregon at the old Nick's Pub. It was in Eugene, Oregon. Apparently about 50 people attended the event, which puts it at a tiny fraction of the number of people outside of it. Some of them supporters of the event, which is intended to inspire a desire to read and use your imagination for young people. Others had different motivations. Some threw rocks and smoke grenades at each other. You can see a photo here of grenades being thrown. There were people wearing tactical gear and riot masks, and they had guns. There were people with semi-automatic weapons who decided to show up here. And it's so weird that so many people would show up at a random drag queen story hour in some town in Oregon. It's almost like it's a national thing where these things are being picked up and then presented to everyone on the internet so that people will go there with guns and freak everyone out and make people fear that they might be shot or beaten or something like that. Now, thankfully, this case, it didn't escalate too much beyond throwing rocks and smoke grenades. Police didn't make any arrests, which doesn't really say anything about the protesters there, since the cops almost certainly are on their side. One person was taken to the hospital. It was an unspecified injury, but there were no arrests, so I guess no one was responsible. In any event, the organizers of the event say that they're going to continue. The event was successful. They are having to spend thousands of dollars on private security, which they have to pay for some reason, not libs of TikTok and Charlie Kirk and the others who make these protests happen. But anyway, JR, it just continues to build and get bigger and bigger and bigger. We're now to the hundreds of people crowded outside of these events.
This continues to be the growing trend of people just have nothing else to do with their time. We had protesters that are actually protesting things like the murder of folks by police officers. It's like, why don't these guys have jobs? You guys are going and harassing drag reading shows. And they say that when people are activists and they work towards trying to change the way policing happens in the country, that they need to go get a job. But these folks that hang around in hundreds of people coming out to harass and intimidate folks with their guns, where's their jobs? Where's their free time going to? They've been pushed to these types of things to be told that there's some kind of assault on their life. You showed up there, bro. Looks like you're interested and you're curious about these drag reading hours. Maybe you want to learn something. Maybe your curiosity for literature is finally sparked because your entire life you were too. I'm not gonna go insult their intelligence. I was almost there, John. But this is what you do with your time. But you complain about other folks and what they're doing. They're looking to inspire and help other folks out. What is it that they're doing at these drag shows that you went and broke up by standing there with your guns? What are you gonna do with your guns? Are you gonna defend yourself with those guns? Is it known that drag queens run around with pistols and start shooting at people after they get through indoctrinating your kids with this evil reading of books? Yeah. Why are you there with guns? Because you're the terrorists. You're the people that are looking to intimidate. You're the bad guys.
A performer at a drag queen story hour performed, started receiving death threats, and even the animal shelter that was the site of one of these events apparently is receiving death threats. That is the America we're living in. So this is an Alabama middle school teacher who also reads stories in drag to both dogs and kids at a nonprofit animal shelter. Was targeted by, libs of TikTok, which had absolutely nothing better to do. And so as a result of this, the school has suspended the educator. The animal rescue organization is now seeking FBI protection because of the rampant death threats. That is what libs of TikTok was able to produce with their advocacy. Someone has been canceled, something that libs of TikTok, of course, would say that they're against. And now people working in an animal shelter are worried that they might be killed at any time. So James Miller has been a drag queen for 22 years, 27 years as a teacher. And apparently the fact that James Miller is both of those things has for more than a couple of decades never been a problem, but we live in an absolute hell time. So it is now a problem. And back in September, when James Miller performed for this drag queen storytime event, it got picked up. You can see one of the tweets that was sent by libs of TikTok. Apparently they didn't like they're saying one of the comments that James Miller said. I would assume that the fact that James exists is more of the core problem. But they didn't like one of the things that James said. Now, James says that while occasionally there might be like a risque comment, They pointed out specifically the hypocrisy between the standards that are put on drag queen story hour performers, and for instance, like every like kids movie. Like Michael, you have a kid. You've seen these movies. They constantly have humor that's designed for the adults watching it that they think the kids won't get.
Right.
Including sexual references, not explicit necessarily, but that's not new.
No, you have to have something to keep you interested when you're sitting in the theater.
Yeah, exactly. And so, look, the dog shelter CEO Lisa Maassen put out a statement about what they're experiencing, saying we are doing nothing wrong. We have no shame for what we do. We fully support the message. We say all the time, we would rather be excluded for who we include than be included for who we exclude. And that will be our statement every day going forward.
Bravo.
Considering
awesome.
It's a great statement.
Yeah.
This is a person who runs a nonprofit dog shelter, which I would hardly cite as one of the elites of society, the powerful establishment. They're just desperately trying to keep dogs from needlessly dying. That's all that they're doing. And now on top of that, they have to worry about violent threats. They have to worry about mobs of Proud Boys picketing outside of them.
Right. You don't hear like a lot of legislation being pushed by big dog shelter, right? I mean, these are not the powerful, influential segments of our society. So bravo to her for that response. That was a great response.